Discover the inspiring moment a nurse revealed her hidden burn scars to a brave little patient. Sarah Thompson was known around the pediatric hospital for her compassionate touch and warm smile. At 32, she had built a reputation that felt as comforting as the teddy bears lining the ward. Yet, as she tucked a blanket around Oliver, an 8-year-old with the vivid reminders of a kitchen fire etched across his arms, Sarah's heart raced with conflict. She was used to providing support, not revealing her vulnerabilities. Would sharing her own scars change how he viewed her? Would it diminish the trust he placed in her? Underneath her caring demeanor, Sarah was constantly weighed down by the secrecy of her childhood accident burn scars that coiled like ribbons around her own arms. Nights alone, staring out at the moonlight, she wished the painful reminders could simply fade away. Her skin was a map of survival, yet every mark felt like a badge of shame. She had always wanted to inspire children, not remind them of their suffering. With Oliver's laughter echoing down the sterile halls, she couldn't help but feel unease rise within her. Each day, as Oliver recounted tales of bravery and imagined adventures, Sarah's heart twisted with admiration. But then she witnessed his sorrow during moments when he overheard whispers from others, their innocence twisted into acts of unkindness. It was unbearable to watch him shift in discomfort, questioning his worth when he should have been embracing his journey of healing. Could she really be the one to guide him toward self-acceptance if she remained shrouded in shadows? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That thought consumed her as she faced sleepless nights, vacillating between courage and overwhelming guilt. Would showing her scars empower Oliver, or simply reveal to him that he wasn't alone in this suffering? The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily against her chest as she imagined pulling back her sleeves. The seriousness of their shared journey struck her like lightning. This was not just about scars, but the very essence of survival and connection. But just as she rationalized her determination to reveal her truth, a loud commotion erupted from the other side of the ward. The kind nurses rushed by, their brows furrowed in concern as alarms rang. Fear clawed at her insides. She turned to Oliver, who stared wide-eyed, confusion morphing into dread. The air grew thick with tension, every beat of Sarah's heart felt strained as she grappled with her decision. Would she reveal her vulnerabilities, her sacrifice to their shared truth while chaos unfolded around them? Or would she hold back her secrets, allowing a chance for clarity to slip through their fingers? The delicate thread of their connection hung precariously on the brink of turmoil, and for Sarah, the moment of truth loomed closer than ever. The chaos of the ward escalated, alarms blaring like sirens in her mind. Sarah shifted instinctively closer to Oliver, her protective instincts flaring. He glanced at her, eyes wide and searching for reassurance. In that moment, his vulnerability mirrored her own, a reflection of their shared struggles. The nurses barked orders, voices rising above the din, shifting Sarah's attention from her introspection to the urgency of the situation. A small child had collapsed, and frantic chatter filled the air as if the ward were a vibrating string, pulled tightly to its breaking point. Sarah's instincts kicked in, her focus sharpening. Here was no time for her self-doubt. How could she support Oliver while feeling so fragmented within herself? Amidst the panic, Oliver's small hand slipped into hers. It was a tentative grip, a silent question of safety. Suddenly, the weight of her own scars felt trivial compared to the reality facing them both. What use were her insecurities when a child was in need? "Stay here with me, Oliver," she whispered, kneeling next to him. "I'll be right back, just a moment." As she squeezed his hand, she felt a flicker of resolve burning brighter. If she could be a beacon for him amidst the storm, perhaps in doing so, she might also empower herself. With that thought, she rushed into the chaos, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Approaching the medical team surrounding the child, Sarah focused on lending her assistance. She utilized her training, quickly assessing the situation. Each action felt instinctual, the years of practice igniting a deep-seated confidence. She spotted the child's pale face and sensed the urgency wrapping around her heart harder than any jacket. While the others worked quickly, she moved in, providing comfort and reassurance to the family, words of strength fostering a moment of calm amidst turmoil. As she completed her task, her thoughts returned to Oliver. What would he think? Did he witness this side of her? The question hung heavily in her mind as she hurried back to him. The shift in the ward had dissipated, leaving an eerie stillness behind, and Oliver was still sitting where she had left him, looking lost. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. He nodded, but his gaze darted away, weighing the reality around him. The kid in the bed next to them was still being worked on. In the space of a few seconds, he went from a carefree spirit telling stories of space adventures to a boy watching life and death unfold before him. Sarah knelt beside him again, her heart breaking for him, knowing the fog of anxiety that threatened to engulf him. "It's okay to feel scared," she reassured, her voice thick with emotion. Their eyes locked, and she saw a glimmer of recognition. Perhaps this was the moment she had both dreaded and sought. The opportunity to share not just her scars but the strength gained through surviving. "Sometimes, we all have things that make us feel different," she began, gently rolling up her shirt sleeve to show the marred skin. "But these scars, they're part of who I am. Just like you, Oliver." His big eyes widened, and there was a moment of silence, one where the air thickened with understanding. "Your scars don't make you less than you are," she continued, her voice steadying. "You're brave because you're facing this, just like I did." In that pivotal moment, something shifted between them. Oliver's expression changed, a flicker of recognition in his fear. He seemed to grasp the innate connection in their shared pain, the invisible tether of resilience that bound them. As Sarah spoke with him, courage washed over her, melting away the rigidity of shame that had so long defined her. She was learning from him just as much, the power wielded in vulnerability blossoming within her heart. Together they began healing, a slow, marvelous unfolding. Yet there remained a looming question: how could they harness this newfound understanding to confront future challenges, not just for themselves but for others in need? With uncertainty ahead, the journey was just beginning. The time had come to face not only their fears but the inevitable struggles that would emerge. Sarah's heart raced with anticipation, ready to embrace whatever might come next. As the night wore on, the ward began to settle into an uneasy calm. The distant beeping of machines softened into a lullaby of sorts, a reminder that life continued its delicate dance despite the trials they faced. Yet for Sarah, still kneeling beside Oliver, the weight of their earlier confrontation lingered. She hadn't merely revealed her scars to him, she had, in that act, confronted her own past, an echo that stirred the shadows within her. They sat in companionable silence, all the chaos momentarily receding into memory. Sarah's fingers brushed over her scars instinctually, and she felt the heat of shame flickering within her. It was a burden she had carried for far too long, and now, as she looked into Oliver's eyes filled with both innocence and sudden wisdom, she knew that vulnerability was a two-edged sword. Pain could be transformed into strength, but only if one chose to wield it. "Do you think I was brave?" Oliver's voice was a whisper, laced with uncertainty. "Brave doesn't mean not being scared," she answered, her voice softer than before. "It means facing that fear and still moving forward." Her mind drifted back to her own moments of hesitance and self-doubt. The feelings of unworthiness that had gripped her since childhood resurfaced, but the fire ignited between them kept her anchored. "If we can face our fears together," she added, "imagine what else we could do." Oliver nodded slowly, a spark igniting in his eyes. There it was, the potential for growth, the promise of discovery that could extend beyond the confines of their shared fears. This shared understanding began to shift Sarah's perspective. She remembered that her battle wasn't just to conquer her own insecurities, it was also about passing that knowledge on. In that moment, determination surged within her, a flicker of ambition that felt new yet achingly familiar. With the knowledge that he was looking to her for guidance, Sarah resolved to become a bridge between their fears and courageous action. "Let us do something," she proposed, trying to infuse her voice with certainty. "Let us use what we've learned here tonight to help others." Mentally, she began to plan, recognizing that while she could guide Oliver, she could also reclaim her own narrative. "What do you mean?" Oliver asked, curiosity lighting up his features. "Maybe we could talk to the others. Share stories, start a group where kids don't feel alone in what they face." Sarah felt strength in her voice, a plan building momentum. "Your bravery could inspire more children like you." As excitement flooded his face, she felt invigorated, as if they were combining their strengths into something bigger than both of them. This was not just about vulnerability, it was about creating a space where vulnerability could thrive as a source of solidarity. She envisioned a circle of encouragement, a community of support for those who struggled like they had. Yet, as much as it thrilled her, a flicker of apprehension warned against this leap. What if her scars and insecurities overshadowed her intentions? What if her attempt to be a mentor simply revealed more of her inadequacies? "Are you sure we can do that?" Oliver's small voice broke into her thoughts. "No," she paused, reminding herself of the realization she had just come to. "I know we can." There was still a vast unknown ahead, a fresh challenge waiting in the shadows. Together, they could embark on this new journey. Yet even as excitement filled her, Sarah couldn't ignore a deeper tension settling within. What would happen when they faced hurdles? When fears rose again, threatening to engulf them, would they remain courageous? In that moment of shared understanding, determination and uncertainty coalesced into a beautiful entity, one that would guide them forward, hand in hand, into the unknown. Their next steps were unclear, yet the desire to face them was undeniable. The path ahead was theirs to shape, but which direction would they take when doubt dared to creep back in? As they wrapped their conversation in dreams of possibility and plans for action, shadows shifted in the corners of the ward, hinting at the challenges that lurked ahead. The time for action was slipping closer, and Sarah felt her heart quicken with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The pivotal moments demanding their courage loomed on the horizon, and she sensed more profoundly than ever that her greatest challenge lay just ahead. How would they harness their shared resilience to overcome what awaited them? This uncertainty hummed through the air, electrifying her with anticipation. The soft glow of the hospital lights felt different now, as if illuminating a path toward an unseen threshold. Sarah's heart danced between excitement and anxiety, a pulse echoing through her. This was more than just a plan. It was a commitment, a way to transform personal pain into collective healing. Yet, with every bright thought, a torrent of hesitance swept in, clouding her mind with the question of worthiness. As she and Oliver began brainstorming, Sarah noticed how his insights sparked fresh ideas. He suggested inviting other patients to share their stories, envisioning a circle formed not of silence but of voices ready to break free from the confines of fear. Each idea he tossed forth was devoid of self-doubt, a stark contrast to the swirling apprehensions inside her own mind. "Maybe we could have a theme every week," Oliver ventured, excitement saturating his words. "Like Courage Week or Story Time." "Those are great," Sarah replied, her voice steady as she pushed through her internal commotion. Encouraging him felt like lending herself strength, building a structure where both could grow. But as she continued to nurture Oliver's ambitions, shadows of her own doubts loomed larger. What if they couldn't pull this off? What if no one wanted to listen? Despite herself, she found an urge to retreat, to shield her vulnerabilities behind a veil of practicality. "Oliver, these ideas, they're wonderful," but the hesitation caught in her throat, and she searched for the right words. "What if we fail? What if no one comes?" "Then we keep trying," he replied, simple conviction wrapping around her insecurities like a warm blanket. "Bravery isn't only about winning, right? It's about showing up anyway. His honesty pierced through her fog of doubt. There was no room for retreat now. She felt the weight of their budding trust compelling her forward. As the conversation unfolded, a visceral realization struck her: this was more than a chance to help Oliver, it was a vital step in reclaiming her own story. Each fear she faced in this process could be woven into a tapestry of resilience, transforming her scars from sources of shame into symbols of strength. The next day, as the sun birthed a new dawn through the hospital windows, Sarah forced herself to step into the role she had envisioned. Sitting down to draft an outline for their first meeting, she fought back the tightening in her chest. The moment she picked up a pen, however, she felt her purpose solidify. It wasn't merely about creating a safe space, it was a challenge to reshape her identity in the light of both her past and her present ambitions. Each word she wrote felt like a deliberate step into unfamiliar territory, stretching her comfort zone. The outlines transformed into questions meant to provoke thought and vulnerability. What is your greatest fear? How did you find your courage when facing it? The more questions she crafted, the more she uncovered her own understanding of bravery, discovering that true strength lies in connections formed through shared experiences. But even as she forged ahead, a whisper of uncertainty taunted her. Who was she to lead? What if those children saw straight through her, unearthing her inadequacies? What if they couldn't connect with her journey? Those thoughts threatened to choke her confidence, and she paused, grit battling vulnerability. You're doing this for them, she muttered under her breath, battling the spiraling doubts. You can't give up. There was an urgency rising within her, demanding she confront her limitations and embrace the call for leadership. The eve of their first group meeting loomed heavy in the air. As she stood at the threshold of the hospital room, heart racing, she knew the moment was critical. They were on the cusp of something transformative, not just for Oliver or the other kids, but for her, too. Would she embrace the role of a mentor, or would she falter beneath the weight of her insecurities? The answer lay just beyond that door, masked in an uncertainty that buzzed with potential. The unknown awaited. Thrilling and terrifying all at once. As she took a breath to calm herself, her finger hovered over the doorknob, leading her to a moment that would redefine everything. What awaited her on the other side? With a deep breath, Sarah pushed open the door. The room, brightly lit and furnished with simple chairs arranged in a circle, felt both welcoming and intimidating. As she stepped inside, a rush of anticipation mingled with anxiety surged through her. The kids' brave souls in their own right would be gathering soon, ready to share, and she needed to embody the strength she wished to impart. She could see Oliver, sitting in the far corner, nervously fiddling with the sleeve of his shirt. The formidable sense of responsibility washed over her. She was not just a facilitator for him, but a beacon for all the children who would soon trust her with their stories. A quick scan of the room's walls revealed motivational posters featuring bright colors and quotes about courage. They felt disjointed, an external display of the very vulnerability she was about to confront in a room full of children. As the first few kids trickled in, Sarah busied herself with arrangements, trying to mask her trembling hands with purposeful task engagement. A shy girl with short, curly hair quietly took a seat next to Oliver, her eyes flickering toward Sarah, then to the floor. In that moment, Sarah recognized the silent plea reflected in the girl's expression, an invitation for understanding, not judgment. That look tugged at the threads of her own haunting fears. "Hi there." Sarah greeted warmly, her voice steadying as she approached the young ones. "Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. This is a safe space for us to share and listen to each other's thoughts." The atmosphere shifted slightly, a spark ignited in the air. Yet, deep down, she could feel the storm within herself brewing stronger. How could she assure them of safety when her own heart felt so troubled? Did she even have the right to lead with her own scars fresh in mind? One after another, children filled the seats, their chatter crescendoing as they settled in. Nervous laughter died down and Rachel, with a bright smile despite bandages on her arm, spoke up, "What are we doing here?" Sarah took a moment to gather herself. Today, we're going to talk about courage, she replied, excitement glazing over her sweat-dampened palms. I will ask some questions and then we can share our stories, or we can simply listen. Each voice is important. Oliver nudged her with a friendly elbow, his eyes wide with eagerness, ready to contribute. Sarah's heart warmed at his spirit. She wasn't alone in this after all. In that shared moment, she felt a flicker of strength ignite, allowing her to recalibrate her own fears within the enormity of this endeavor. She began with the questions she crafted, each one a pathway to honesty. As the kids responded, some with laughter, others with hesitant whispers, Sarah carved her own space. Rather than hiding her insecurities behind a facade of competence, she found herself drawn to vulnerability. She realized that showing her scars might just bridge the gap between her soul and theirs. Sometimes, Sarah began, her voice cracking slightly, courage isn't about being fearless. It's about facing what scares you, even when it feels impossible. I have my own marks of courage. Just then, she hesitated. The weight of that statement hung heavy in the air. Did she truly want to unveil that part of herself to them? The room hung in anticipation. The kids, all eyes on her, seemed to understand innately that this was a defining moment. Here she was, faced with answering the echo of her own questions alongside them. They were all grappling with their battles. She wasn't just leading them, she was one of them. As the unvarnished truth of her own experiences threatened to spill over, an unexpected surge of determination flooded her veins. Perhaps it was the energetic courage radiating from Oliver or that potent mix of hope and fear in the room, but she felt it the undeniable strength that could only come from shared vulnerability. But as she leaned into that truth, dread crept in. What if revealing her scars to these children cemented her fears instead of dissolving them? What if her story resonated in ways she couldn't anticipate? With a brief glance back at Oliver, who nodded encouragingly, Sarah took a deep breath and resolved to turn the tide. The choice lay before her: would she let fear dictate her path, or would she pave the way with authenticity? The question lingered in the air, tantalizingly unresolved, as Sarah prepared to make that vulnerable leap. It was time to transform her scars into a source of strength not only for herself, but for the children sharing this pivotal moment with her. How far would she truly go to confront her past to inspire their futures? Sarah inhaled deeply, embracing the air heavy with possibility. Her heart raced, each pulse a reminder of the impending leap into authenticity. The laughter and whispers of the children melted away behind the black veil of her thoughts as she stood before them, the weight of their gaze stirring both fear and exhilaration. I'm going to share something personal with you all, she began, her voice unwavering, though the tremor beneath was palpable. I have struggled with feeling brave, even when I hid behind a smile and claimed to be strong. You see, I have scars too. She caught Oliver's eye again, his wide expression urging her on, solidifying her resolve. She continued, these scars remind me of times I faced my fears. The children's silence was deafening, but Sarah pressed on. As she rolled up her sleeve, revealing the faint pink marks where the burn wounds had been, a wave of vulnerability washed over her. She was exposed, her imperfections laid bare before those who bore their own struggles. In this pivotal moment, Sarah felt a bond forming, the invisible threads connecting her to each child as she flicked her gaze across their faces, hoping to elicit their internal dialogues. Each scar tells a story, she explained, detailing the incident that had forged her scars, learning through adversity that vulnerability could be a source of strength rather than shame. I was terrified back then, just like you might feel now. It took months of healing, both physically and emotionally, before I could see them as symbols of survival instead of loss. Rachel, who had been quiet until this moment, broke the silence. Did it hurt? How did you get through it? Her question landed tenderly, prompting an unexpected swell within Sarah. The sincerity echoed her own internal conflicts, igniting her determination to be more than a mere voice. It hurt a lot, but I discovered that sharing my pain made it lighter, she replied, her words flowing freely now as the buoyancy of their exchange lifted her spirit. Being honest about what scares us allows others to feel safe to share their stories too. The children sat with rapt attention, their eyes wide and expectant. Oliver, emboldened by Sarah's openness, leaned forward. "I'm scared of failing. What if I try and I mess up?" His voice wavered, unconfident yet compelling. Sarah's heart ached for him. She recognized that fear intimately, it mirrored her own. "That's a really valid fear, Oliver. But you know what? Failing is just part of learning. Every time we fall, we get up stronger and wiser. It's how we grow." The conversation swelled around her like a refreshing tide, each child battling with their insecurities and fears in readiness. The unexpected camaraderie forged in Sarah's heart was mirrored on their faces, wary, yet courageous. With each shared moment became a stepping stone. The sharing of experiences transformed the room into a sanctuary of collective healing. It was loud, chaotic, and beautiful. But amidst the openness brewed a tension she hadn't anticipated. A nagging voice whispered that she hadn't fully addressed her own demons, the aspects of her journey still shrouded in shadows. Just then, as Oliver shared another story of fear, it suddenly dawned on her that her role was shifting. What if I have deeper scars I haven't revealed? The thought gnawed at her like a curious ache. As the session continued, she felt a tug within her, a need to confront not just the fears that bound her to the past, but the very truth she had avoided all along. Perhaps what was beginning here in this room, this vulnerability, this boldness, could lead to something far greater. She realized that mastering one's fears wasn't solely an act of bravery, it could be a gateway to genuine strength. What truths lay ahead still cloaked in uncertainty? A knot twisted in her gut. It was time to confront the memories she'd hidden away, to truly inspire these children with the depth of her entire story. With a determined heart, Sarah prepared for the tempest of her past that awaited her, wanting to not only leave a mark of encouragement but also to illuminate a path through shadows and into the light of understanding. The question so often unaddressed echoed louder as she sat with them, her next revelation trembling on the edge of her tongue. But what was the real source of my pain, and would speaking it create the freedom I longed for? The air in the room buzzed with energy as Sarah felt the weight of her unspoken truths hovering just above her lips. The children, suspended in youthful curiosity, leaned in, unaware of the tempest brewing within her. Sarah swallowed hard, contemplating Oliver's question as it danced at the forefront of her thoughts. It wasn't just fear of failure that pulsed through her veins, it was the echo of every moment she had chosen silence over sincerity, every time she had brushed aside her pain behind a mask of strength. "Sometimes," she began, her voice slightly trembling, "the scars you can't see are the hardest to confront. I don't just have the physical scars, I have emotional ones too, worn like a cloak, sometimes heavy, sometimes not." The attentiveness of the children intensified, their expressions filled with a mix of empathy and intrigue. Sarah focused on Oliver's earnest gaze, grounding herself in his innocence. "When I was younger, I faced a really tough time," she continued, choosing her words with care, "a time steeped in loneliness and self-doubt. I lost someone very important to me, and that left scars too, ones that seeped into my heart and made me feel like I didn't belong anywhere." A silence hung in the air, a palpable connection forming, binding their stories together in an unspoken promise of understanding. The truth sat heavy in her chest, begging to be shared. "I was scared to be vulnerable. I feared my actions would dissolve into their own shadows." Rachel's eyes sparkled with shared recognition. "Did anyone help you feel better?" "Yeah," Sarah replied. "I had a mentor, someone who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. They taught me the power of opening up and sharing my struggles. That's why I'm here today, to be that person for you." A murmur swept through the group, a chorus of "I can relate" and "I understand." The unity was transformative. As Sarah opened the floodgates to her emotions, she discovered that her narrative wasn't just about her scars, it was intertwined with every child's tale of bravery. Vulnerability was becoming a catalyst for strength, not only for her but for them, too. As she delved deeper into her narrative, she felt both exposed and liberated, the edges of her fears starting to soften. "It's part of our growth," she affirmed, the realization ringing clear. "In sharing our stories, we find connection, healing, and a sense of purpose. And you know what? It gives us strength, turning our fears into fuel for the journey ahead." But as the realization washed over her, a new fear began to surface, the possibility that her past might still hold her hostage. What if these scars don't just signify strength but also something I can never fully escape? The inner turmoil disrupted the newfound peace she felt while sharing. Would she find resolution, or was she simply exposing herself to fresh wounds? A quiet moment passed, and Sarah could sense the weight of her revelation lingering in the air. She had bared the depths of her heart, yet the quest for total self-acceptance seemed daunting. The children's nods of understanding faded into silence as she shifted gears, aware that for true connection, more than her own story needed to be uncovered. "Why don't we share our own scars, whether they are real or invisible?" she encouraged, hesitance wafting in her words. The very notion both thrilled and terrified her. The urge to explore the vulnerabilities of her students magnified the anxiety she felt for her own. This was no easy task, yet she felt a sense of urgency for them to experience the transformative power of their collective truths, much like her own. Would they discover a strength within themselves they hadn't realized existed? Would their own fears bubble to the surface, ready to be confronted just as she had done? In that moment, she understood that this journey required mutual vulnerability, mirroring her own readiness to dismantle the barriers that hid her deepest truths. As Oliver and Rachel exchanged glances, tentatively raising their hands to share their fears, Sarah realized something fundamental was at stake. A shared healing awaited them all. What other unaddressed shadows lingered in the depths of their souls, ready for exposure and exploration? The next step in Sarah's journey loomed like an open door, inviting her to step forward with them into the unknown. As Sarah stood at the precipice of this shared moment, she took a deep breath, diving into the unknown alongside her students. The space felt charged, as if the air itself crackled with the weight of anticipation. The first to break the silence was Oliver, his small voice shaking slightly as he shared, I feel scared when I have to present in front of the class. I think everyone will laugh at me." His confession struck a chord within Sarah. She remembered her own days of anxiety, the feeling of being thrust into vulnerability while hoping that nobody would notice how much she was shaking inside. "Thank you for sharing that, Oliver," she responded, her voice steady yet warm. "It takes real courage to be honest about what scares us." Rachel followed, her hesitance morphing into bravery. I'm not good at math. I worry everyone thinks I'm dumb." The sincerity in her words rippled through Sarah, making the room feel like a sanctuary for brokenness and healing. This was not just about Sarah's burdens, this was a generative space where each child's story mattered just as much. "Why do we feel that way?" came from another child in the back. The question hung in the air as Sarah wrestled with her thoughts. It pivoted them closer to a collective realization, a significant turning point. "It's because we often think we don't measure up or that our struggles make us less worthy of love and acceptance," she said, her heart racing. "But what if, instead, our fears and struggles are what connect us?" As she spoke, Sarah found herself not only guiding her students but also forging a path of self-acceptance for herself. The narrative cycles of vulnerability were blurring lines, making her reflect on her own hesitations. Could she combat her internal doubts while empowering them? The faces of the children in front of her illuminated with newfound understanding as they began to accept themselves and each other. Oliver raised his hand again. "What if we all work together to get better? Like a team?" Her heart warmed at the thought. "That's an excellent idea, Oliver. We can become each other's support systems. Every victory, no matter how small, is worth celebrating." As the children nodded excitedly, forming an invisible bond through shared vulnerability, Sarah felt an internal shift. It was like stepping from a shadowed lane into a sunlit path that beckoned forth growth. But a nagging thought lingered in the back of her mind. Was she truly worthy of leading them through this transformation? Her mentor's lessons resonated within her. To be a guide, she must embrace her own fragility. Okay, she began, the tremor in her voice barely noticeable. I'll share more, too. I'll show you my scars. Together, we can find our strength. With hesitant resolve, Sarah rolled up her sleeve, revealing the faint burn marks on her forearm. The children gasped collectively, their eyes widening in curiosity and compassion. These are from an accident, she continued, her heart pounding. But they remind me that every scar tells a story of resilience. Just like your fears, my scars don't define me, they illustrate my journey. The atmosphere shifted, the kids were mesmerized, witnessing the vulnerability of their teacher. They started to connect dots between their own insecurities and her willingness to share her scars. A sense of unity began to grow, where once was isolation. In that moment, a wave of empowerment surged within the group, a palpable energy of shared purpose anchoring them in the present. But as newfound courage took root, Sarah couldn't ignore the flickering shadows of doubt threading through her thoughts. What awaited them in this journey of shared truths? Would they spiral deeper into vulnerability, unsettling the fabric of their already frayed emotions? The tension simmered beneath what felt like an exhilarating breakthrough. If they were all stepping into this newfound path together, what depths would they dare to explore? As Sarah looked into the innocent eyes of her students, she understood that they were standing on the brink of something profound. But was she ready to face the next layer of her own past, now bound to the fears and dreams of those kids in front of her? The tightness in her chest signaled a revelation approaching. What challenges lay ahead as they ventured further into the healing abyss both for them and for her? The classroom buzzed with a newfound energy, like tiny sparks igniting in each corner of the room. Sarah felt the weight of her own vulnerability echoing in the breaths of her students. They were united now, both students and teacher, navigating the unpredictable waters of fear and aspiration. Sarah understood that they had taken their first steps into a shared journey of growth, yet the anxiety still coiled tightly within her. She had revealed her scars, but what did that truly mean for her? As the children began to discuss their fears more openly, their voices mingled, creating a chorus of insecurities that felt oddly comforting. Sarah watched them, the waves of emotion coursing through the group sparking memories of her own stumbling path. Yet, she felt that they held something that she had long sought, a sense of belonging in their vulnerability. Could she mirror that newfound sense of community while continuing to wrestle with her own insecurities? Let us write down our fears, Sarah suggested, her mind racing to shape the moment into something profound yet constructive. Then we can share them, only if you want. The students' faces lit up, showing interest at the thought of expressing themselves in written form. The sound of pencils scratching against paper filled the room. Sarah observed, feeling a mix of pride and nervousness. It was one thing to have encouraged them to confront their fears, but now, every stroke of their pencils tethered her more tightly to her own. She could feel the words of their fears mingling with her own unspoken worries. Would they reveal her inadequacies? Would she falter in their eyes? As the writing session concluded, Sarah invited the students to share what they had penned. One by one, they opened their hearts, pitching their vulnerabilities into the air as if they were fragile glass ornaments. Their cries for acceptance and understanding guided the environment to develop further layers of trust. Anxious about not being liked, fear of failing math, worry about not being good enough at sports. The sincerity of their words forged bridges between them, but Sarah's internal monologue remained turbulent. Finally, Oliver spoke up again. I am afraid of not being brave enough to try, his small voice wavering slightly. The transparency in his admission struck a nerve with Sarah. Recognizing his circular bravado echoed her own, she realized it was time to dig deeper, to be honest in ways she hadn't foreseen. Let me tell you something, she found herself saying, heart racing as she caught their wide-eyed attention. There are days that I still feel like I'm not enough, and it can be terrifying. She glanced around the room, gauging their reactions. But I want you to know, just because we feel fear doesn't mean we can't be brave. A hush fell over the room, a collective understanding forming as they contemplated her words. Sarah could see their admiration mingled with newfound respect. Perhaps they weren't just learning from her, they were holding a mirror to her own reflections, stimulating her own journey of bravery. Yet beneath her resolution lay the disquieting undercurrent of doubt. Was she truly leading them? Or were they just as much a source of strength for her? A flicker of rebellion against her internal critic emerged. What if she began to trust herself more? From today onwards, she declared, the weight of conviction lacing her words, we will find one fear each week to confront together. Starting small, but making strides. The children's cheers filled her with a rush of warmth, but a nagging question remained, was she ready to dive deeper into her own fears? A lingering thought haunted her, what was it going to take for her to step through the thresholds of her past, and how would her students handle the newly uncovered layers of fear? Could she truly lead if she herself was still navigating the labyrinth of her own emotions? The uncertainty loomed like a shadow, whispering of revelations just beyond the horizon, waiting to be fully uncovered. As days turned into weeks, the creative energy within the group flourished. Each session deepened their shared connection, transforming Sarah into more than just a facilitator, she was an advocate for their collective healing journey. The children grew bolder, discussing their victories and fears with increasing ease, and Sarah found her own insecurities facing a relentless challenge. Oliver had become a trusted ally in this process. His infectious enthusiasm spurred others on, propelling them out of their shells and exposing the rawness of their vulnerabilities. Sarah watched as he stood before the group, speaking passionately about his journey toward embracing his scars. It was a testament not just to his growth but also to the thriving environment they had fostered together. Remember, every small victory counts. He exclaimed, and the others echoed his sentiment with nods of agreement. Riding the wave of enthusiasm, Sarah felt buoyed by their triumphs, while inside, her determination to confront her own fears continued to simmer. One particular afternoon, as the sunlight filtered through the hospital windows, casting a warm glow over the group, Sarah sensed a significant moment approaching. They sat in a circle, the buzz of anticipation palpable as Oliver suggested they share their biggest accomplishments since refining their individual goals. It felt exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Her greatest challenge loomed ever closer. Sarah? Oliver turned to her, will you share with us, too? Tell us what you've accomplished since we started. All eyes turned to her, the weight of their curiosity a warm blanket yet a pivotal pressure. The moment hung suspended, teasing her with potential. Would the time be right to unveil her deeper truths? In that instant, her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She could feel the walls she had built around her vulnerabilities crumbling, the space they had created demanding authenticity from her. Taking a deep breath, she began. I've realized just how hard it is to truly embrace vulnerability. The words poured out, raw and unfiltered. It's something I've struggled with since childhood, but recognizing that I'm not alone here sharing this journey with you all gives me strength. Oliver's face lit up with understanding, as did the others. They knew that her scars, like theirs, were part of her story, deep and powerful. It's been a journey of learning to accept my imperfections, to reclaim my narrative, and redefine what bravery means, she continued, feeling lighter with each revelation. The room pulsed with energy. Sarah noticed the energy shift as her words resonated deeply. They stood at the intersection of collective healing and mutual support. We're all navigating fears, and that's what makes us stronger together, she added, her own fears now interwoven with theirs. In the soft flicker of the overhead lights, she laid bare her dreams and insecurities, reflecting on the mentors that had shaped her life. And now, I want to become the kind of mentor that inspires, encourages, and supports others in facing their fears. As her eyes met Oliver's, she received the response she hoped for, a smile that mirrored her own sense of liberation. The laughter that erupted from the group was rich and profound, lifting her spirit as they collectively celebrated not just her revelations but also their bond. At that moment, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders, her scars transforming from symbols of shame into badges of honor. She realized that true vulnerability was a beautiful mechanism of connection, a bridge leading to understanding, healing, and empathy. The culmination of her journey became evident within the glow of their shared laughter and the pulsating energy of solidarity in the room. Yet, a question still lingered: what next? How would they venture beyond the walls of the hospital, extending their newfound courage to the world outside? "Let us plan an exhibition," Oliver shouted suddenly, his voice breaking through her contemplations. "We can invite our parents and show them how far we've come." Excitement erupted. The germs of optimism infected the group as they began sharing ideas for the exhibition. It would feature their stories, their fears, and their triumphs, framed not around mere words but through tangible displays of their emotional journeys. As the session wound down, Sarah realized that embarking on this journey together had catalyzed an unwavering transformation within her, a sense of confidence solidified through the firm embrace of vulnerability. They could encourage one another while continuing to understand the importance of sharing their stories openly. Outside the walls of their safe space, an impending reality awaited them. Could they carry their lessons into the world, where judgment loomed large, ready to challenge their hard-won resilience? Would their scars manifest into empowering narratives that inspired others to embrace their vulnerability? A calm refreshed her spirit. She didn't have all the answers, but the journey of transformation had commenced. As they left the room, laughter and excitement echoing behind them, Sarah felt converted into solace and strength. This was not an end but an ongoing journey, one that would bring the promise of ongoing growth. She walked with Oliver and the others, knowing her own scars were markers of survival, each telling a story of resilience that echoed through every corner of her heart. In truth, they were gifts, monuments to her journey, each growing progressively brighter as she moved forward. Indeed, she was ready to share their stories, her heart beating with anticipation, hope, and courage. They would illuminate the way for others navigating their struggles, and together they would build a legacy of strength, compassion, and connection, embracing every challenge life would throw their way. The future was theirs to shape, and they would walk hand in hand, leaving a mark that would not only impact their lives but spark a fire of hope in others as well. And she knew then, with solid confidence, she had become the mentor she always wanted to be. Now it was time for all of you to join this meaningful journey. Take a moment to reflect on your own scars and the strength in vulnerability. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it makes a difference to us. Comment your reactions and theories about today's ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Step up, for these lessons of resilience need to touch lives. Don't wait even one more second to share.